eri tā tangata, he Māori reo, he Māori ora, he Māori ora e.
In this episode of Ororua, Libby Gray is joined by well-known composer and Taonga Pūoro practitioner, Horomona Horo, no Ngāpuhi, no Taranaki maunga, no Ngāti Porou. Exploring Horomona's love for te ao Māori and how connecting not only with Taonga Pūoro, but with te reo, me ona tikanga, was Rongoā in his journey. From freestyling on the streets of Auckland to expressing his oro and accompanying the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, Horomona was profoundly influenced by hip-hop culture and has combined and fused many different musical genres to express his wairua. Nō reira e te iwi, whakarongo mai.
Nau mai kia hau manu e.
E mihi ana kia koe, kei te whatukura, e te tungane mau i watea mai i a koe, i tō ao puku ki te mahi, ki te whakaora, ki te whakamana i o tātou taonga tuku iho. E mihi ana kia koe Horomona. Whakamohio atu ki te ao whakarongo, ko wai koe, no whea koe.
Ka hoki atu rā, taku wairua ki te tihi o ōku maunga. Ka tū taki ngā pai o te maunga tito eo Taranaki. Whakawhiti atu rā ki te maunga, ka kite atu i a tamanui te rā, hara ko hikurangi. Ka tau taku wairua ki tēro o ngā maunga rangatira o te nōta ara ko pūtahi. I reira, ka tū hono ki te toto whenua i roto i ōku awa, ara i te nōta ko wairoro, te tai hau auru ko wai totoroa, te tai rāwhiti ko wai apu. I reira ngā paupau o tōku whakapapa paunamu i roto i era wāhi ki Ngāti ua pohatu ki te tai rāwhiti, ki te uri o hua ki te nōta, ara ki Ngāti aupoto ki te tai hau auru. Arara, ko tōku whakapapa o Taranaki, Ngāti Porou, Ngāpuhi hoki, tēnei au tētahi o ngā uri, o ero o ngā tūpuna, o Aotearoa nei, ko Horomona Horo tōku ingoa. Tēnei te mihi ake, ki te whānui e whakarongo mai ana ki tēnei o ngā reo.
Kia ora. Thank you again, Tungane. I know you have lots of places to be and we are so time poor because we are so talented in all of the mahi that we're doing, right? So it's a pleasure. It is, no mātua no te whiwhi. No tātua no te whiwhi, hau manu o tira ngā kai whakarongo. Kua tae mai koe ki Wanganui a tātou te rangi nei. Taonga Pūoro, you are living and breathing Taonga Pūoro on the daily. You are seen, you are heard, you are looked up to. Horomona Horo, where did Taonga Pūoro start for you? How did Taonga Pūoro get into the world o te ao o Horomona Horo?
Like many of us, not a lot of us were actually brought up in te ao Māori. We were more, for my upbringing was more of very similar to Gracie in the movie of One Two Warriors. In many ways. And so being brought up in a whānau, I suppose it was taken away from our ukaipo, our tūranga waiwai, for many varying reasons, and urbanisation and trauma built a lot of what resulted in many of our upbringings. You know, I went to 15 schools, got kicked out of school at 15. All the teachers signed my leaving certificate before the legal age of 16. Never got expelled or suspended in any of my kura, but number 7 of 10 kids for my mum. Low socioeconomic, and so it must have, for my teachers at my last kura, it must have said, actually one of the teachers said to me, I remember that, you know, as he was signing my leaving certificate, he was saying, yes, well, ones like you will just continue to fill up our incarcerated prisons in New Zealand, and so here you go. You know, and just because people in my family weren't that well off in society, it was just one of those things. And there was a typical upbringing coming from kaikohe, coming from the Hokianga, but all the many homes I had when I grew up, I ended up finding out nearly every one of my homes were the hoods of those particular areas, from, you know, Cannons Creek and Wellington, you know, through to, of course, Otara and Mangere and Kaikohe and the block in Rotorua. And so all the places that I was brought up in, you had that sort of like societal view of stereotypes of what Māori were. And so many people thought I was in particular gangs. And so, yeah, Taonga Pūoro actually came to me, I suppose when I was at the bottom of the cliff, or under the bridges in Auckland. And I ended up moving to my sister's house down in Rotorua and done a number of things, and which wasn't the greatest. But what it actually done, I loved hip-hop. You know, like many young Māoris, I loved hip-hop, loved reggae, loved freestyling. And so, you know, I loved NWA, Snoop Dogg, Tupac. At that time, you know, Bone Thugs and Harmony were just came out. You know, they'd been old in the States, but in New Zealand it took a little while before the music got here back then on a cassette. I ended up having these crazy dreams in Rotorua that really made me get up and leave to go back to Kaikohe. And on that trip back to Kaikohe, I ended up jumping on this course, which you had to jump on a waka. And for the 6 weeks, you started at one marae. They taught you how to hold a hoi, look after yourself on the waka and everybody else on the waka, all the safety drills and all of that. But then each day would be on the waka steering it to the next marae up the Hokianga Harbour. And so at each marae that we stayed at, we had to learn a karakia, continue to learn a waiata and this thing called a whai kōrero. And because I had a bit of a mouth, you know, I was quick to learn whai kōrero, rote learnt. And so by the end, I was standing up on the marae and the old people would give us the stick thing that had flash carving on it. You know, it was a toko. But, you know, they gave it and, you know, I earned the right by the end to hold it and speak on behalf of our crew. And it made me feel really cool. You know, I actually started lifting my pants up a bit higher because back in those days we had origins and all of those things that you never wore up above your hips, you know. But, you know, I started learning about Te Ao Māori and I loved it. I loved everything. And through that, I jumped in a rangatahi group called Te Honga Ake, and first time I met other rangatahi that could actually speak Māori, I thought it was a language for old people.
Wow.
I used to hear my nan and the old people at home speak Māori, but they were the only ones I would hear. But I met ones like, you know, Quentin Hitter, Bennett Pomana and Te Moana Rapley, because that's when my time just started. And you know, it was cool to be Māori. You know, it's cool to started hanging out with this rangatahi group and got to meet Damn Native, Kinkapisi, Urban Pacific, Native Sons, and just the old school of reggae music from, you know, Catch a Fire was only starting then, and you had like Herbs, you know, those fellas had done the whirlwind trip and they used to come back and share their stories, and man, for us from the streets, we loved it. I got to meet the ones like Tamiiti, Hone Harawera, Annette Sykes, Moana Jackson, and all these people that I was meeting. It was just buzzing me out that there was another Māori world, because my Māori world was once with warriors. But when I asked my Māori world from these kaumata along the Hokianga Harbour, they said, "Boy, if ever you have a question, go to the taiao and ask them. They'll reply to you, boy." And I was going, "Oh, what's a taiao, sir?" And they're like, "That any environment, just go to the beach, go to the ocean, go to the bush. And if you want to look around, ask the manu, ask the birds, ask the waves, and they'll reply to you." And at that time I suppose you could easily call it, I was lost. I used to smoke an ounce of weed a day, half an ounce of weed a day, and that was just the norm. And so I listened to the old fella and went to the bush and would look at the trees and say, "Oh, yes, so I heard the old fella said, what did they say? Oh, yeah, you're tāne mahu te." And they said that if I asked you something that you're going to reply. And I've been asking churches my whole life if you can stop my mum from getting the bash. If you could stop my whānau from drinking just this week. If you could... but I'm at the point now that I just want to end it, eh? If you can show me something that will change my mind, I'll stop smoking weed for 1 week, And then within that week, boom, something happened, I met these young people. They told me to go to this thing called a maurako wānanga at a marae in Taranaki. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, oh, sweet, sure." And then at that wānanga, I'll be like holding the stick and learning pautahi, that, you hold it with your mana, which means your pride and your energy, and you can use your energy and make it part of you. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool," and in the middle of it, I was like, I'll be stopped, put the stick down, raced around where nobody was looking at me going, "Oh, what's that you, eh?" Looking at the world around me. "What's that you, eh? What's this, that? Oh, yeah, sweet. I'm going to stop. Yeah. 1 week. And then not long after, I go, 2 weeks. If you can show me something even meaner, and 2 weeks turned into a month, turned into a year, turned into, we're over 25 years later.
Wow.
Sitting in this studio having a kōrero. And when I started asking those questions, I was introduced to Taonga Pūoro. It was actually by Hone Harawera's daughter. She had this kōwauau just like yours, just from I think her one was from a beef bone, and it had 3 holes in it that she'd put up on her mantelpiece. And I tried to learn it, and it took me ages. I got pissed off, would chuck it out her window, and then go and get it afterwards, because she'd go, "Oh, don't chuck my puoro out the window." And I just can't get it, and when I finally got it, I cried, and it did something to me, and I put it back. And then I was given the opportunity to go overseas to a World Indigenous Youth Campaign. I thought I went because of my rapping skills, and I could, if they gave me a kaupapa to do, I could rap it, and so there was 3 of us that went over and represented for our 5th World Indigenous Youth Conference. And over there, one of the other hosts, a sister, Bethany Edmonds, she gifted the people there a flash CD called Te Ku Te Whē. And they put it on, and that was the first time I heard it. I was in Holland. As soon as the very first sounds come on, my whole body stopped, and I was just crying, and everyone was going, "Solomon," because actually, people knew me as Solomon then. They're like, "Soul man, are you okay?" And I couldn't talk from the very start of that CD right to the very end. And then when it finished, I asked the hosts, "What was that music?" And our host looked at me funny going, "Hey?" I was going, "Where was that music from?" And they're like, "From your island? Ain't you Māori?" I'm like, "Yes." And I go, "Those were Māori instruments." And I was going, and for anybody today, they were like, "Hey, yeah, Cal, you didn't know that was Māori." But in that state, I just didn't know where it was from. And when I found out that it was Māori music, it was from home, when I came back. From that day to today, I'm still trying to search for the meanings and still trying to search or still trying, not even trying, but living what I saw when I first heard Te Kūtewhi being played. It took me another 3-4 years before I got to meet my two mentors, which was, of course, Papa Hereni Melbourne and Papa Richard Nuns. And, but by the time I met them, I could play Te Kūtewhi. I learned how to sing the waiata on Te Kūtewhi. And by then, I'd already found a book in the library called Toi Api Api and the cassette that came with it. And I was that one, yes sis, I was that one that took it out and didn't take it back to the library and paid the fine because I wanted to keep the puka puka and the cassette. I didn't mind paying the fine because that was like, I suppose, putting it in the classification, that was like my paipera tapu, to Toi Api Api, and another cassette from Te Kura o Ruatoki, where Papa Hereni had sung songs of the kura in Ruatoki. Yeah, and then from there, when I met them, it was like, I suppose, a young person waiting for Christmas meeting hanakoho, when I finally got to meet Hereni and Richard in Rotorua.
Yeah.
And that was in 2000. And I finally got to meet them.
Well, I hear this kōrero tēnā koe for sharing, because it shows that Taonga Pūoro and aspects of our Māori was your rongoā. Yeah, was your hina tore, was what brought you to where you are today. E mihi ana ki nei kōrero. And just how I think when we have this strong emotional reaction to oro, and you were on another, halfway across the world where you heard this oro, but how cool that in your toto and in your whakapapa, your toto, your whakapapa, your tupuna, your atua, were still and are still very tightly woven, that you had the strong emotional reaction. It was like, where, ka puta mai ngā roimata, te maramatanga, that this was the start to an amazing career in Taonga Pūoro.
Yeah, well, because, like from the very beginning, I never knew what it was going to do.
Yeah.
It had, I eventually found, of course, it's become my rongoā. I didn't know what rongoā was then.
Yeah.
But all I knew is wherever kaupapa Māori were, I had to be there to learn. And I asked my Nan, I want to learn how to speak Māori. And her reply was, you want to learn how to speak Māori, mogo? Bloody stop smoking that tacky-wacky stuff and the da-da-da-da-da-da, ko hete way. I was like, and, I eventually did, and that was my sacrifice. I thought I'd stop something I never ever thought I'd do. I never ever thought I'd stop, because what kept me alive for a few years in my teens was hip-hop, was that American hip-hop. But then when I started meeting the bros and the sisters in New Zealand hip-hop and the revitalisation of, the mid-90s through to the year 2000, Aotearoa hip-hop was bringing back stories of old for urban Māori, even rural Māori, but urban Māori that were living on the streets, having the inspiration from the likes of Up Hot Posse coming through and like Moana Maniapoto, a e I o u, it's cool to kōrero, and kia mau ki te reo Māori,
Yes.
we used to love singing it, and hard case thing is I eventually ended up in her band, known as Moana and the Tribe, and but before then, I used to listen to her as a kid at my parents' parties singing Black Pearl, pretty little girl, and then ended up being a part of her tribe, but all of these things, all of these particular things would happen to me for no other reason but for me going to the taiao and actually asking and eventually finding out that, the taiao is me, and then finding out, going to the moana, I'd make sure if I had questions to ask tangaroa, I had to go to the moana, take off my shoes and socks and put my feet in the moana and say, kia ora papa, kia ora matua, and say, I've got a question, and fire away my mamai or my query to the moana. And then one of the things I had to do if I did that was hikoi along the moana and pick up the rubbish. Because in giving back or cleaning up the environment, it sort of like let me know, he'll let me know that my question, the intention is real, that I'm not just going and asking for everything and not giving anything back in reply.
Tiaki taiao.
Yeah, tiaki. And everywhere I was going, those things, I'd make sure it would happen. But because, as I said earlier, my sacrifice was giving up weed, giving up all that stuff that I was normal for me. And so, I'd ask questions, but then still have to go and get a kai. So I'd take my nephews and nieces to get some watercress or puha alongside of the road in Kaikohe. And then some birds would come down while I was playing my kōwauwau that was made from a bone from a hangi. Start playing it and the bird would come down and I'd see them and go, it's just withdrawals. Carry on playing. But then my nephews and nieces were, Uncle, far out, that's cool. I was like, what? That little bird's come dancing in front of us while you were playing your whistle thing. It's like, what? You can see that? They're like, yeah, Uncle, pretty cool. They're like, can you do it again? Hey, look, it's sitting on the fence.
Cool.
And then I'd test it out, and then the communication started getting stronger and I was just like, whoa, other people can actually see it, and so when I met Hirini and Richard in Rotorua, and started doing wānanga with them and them sharing the stories, even though, the story that you hear about Hinaro Katori in her whare tūngaunga and the story of the chrysalis and the creation and the voices of Hinaro Katori, it connected to me running away from my family because of the life that I was leading in that way. I ran away from my family and ended up on the streets, and rekindling my energy or refinding my te ao Māori through the journey that I was taking. It led me in the best possible direction when I reflect back on it, because when I ask questions about what's this tenoranga tiratanga, I'd end up hitchhiking to a wānanga and meeting Moana Jackson and then just falling in love with his voice because he was able to explain the most complicated political arguments in a story about his maunga in Kahungunu. And sharing the story of the spring waters of his maunga, and it just hitting you right in the heart. Even though back in those days I was up at Waitangi listening to this fella, and then next to him was that short fella with the moko all over his face, and then I eventually got to meet Papatame and, with all of these matua and at Sykes and all these people that I was meeting, they were like my aunties. And I built a respect, and I made sure if I want to see them again, I've got to be onto it. I've got to make sure, like they're saying, rangatahi mā, there's these kaupapa that you really want to be a part of it, me ki te kaupapa, me whai tō mana motu hake. And so I've made sure to learn te reo Māori. I made sure what would help me, that, and my thing was most of my mates were going towards hip-hop, and when I fell in love with puoro, not a lot of people were in that area, and so that's what I picked up, and I fell in love with trying to find the answers that I was hearing over in Holland, and it's led me in so many directions that for some people they look at me as a musician of Taonga Pūoro. It helped me live.
Yeah.
I'm one of those ones that have attempted, that when I was younger, giving it all up and through te ao Māori for me. I know for everyone it's different. But for me it was, finding my ao Māori that helped me find that hinatore, helped me find that spark, that flame, that ahi kōmau. And since finding it, it's warmed my heart, and it's kept me warm. It's allowed me to have a family. You know, I never thought when I was younger on the streets that I actually lived to have kids. And when I made it to my 21st and could tell my mum the day after the party, that, you know, I was going to be a father. For my mum, she had heaps of mokos already, but for me, I was like, in my head, I was like, far out. Then I'd go back to the moa and have my own tangi and say, thank you for it's going to be freaky being a papa, you know, and I delivered all my babies, and it was thanks to the journey and the stories from our tupuna, and being able to have this gift of using Taonga Pūoro as the key, as the messenger, is, you know, I've met some awesome whānau, and in haumanu, in our haumanu whānau, after meeting Hirini and Richard, I got to meet a lot of whānau like Papa Joe Malcolm, known as Kōwauwau Joe in Te Arawa, you know, who was an integral part of the revitalisation of Taonga Pūoro. I got to meet Papa Ranginui Keith, who was a crack up every time we got together and just sat and would listen to his stories about his journey of, you know, carving Pūoro. And by that time, I was meeting a lot of people at Waikato University, because that's where Papa Hirini and Richard would base themselves, and then, you know, got to meet Rangiria Headley. And the beautiful thing about Rangiria for me is she was one that would always make, even though she may not have even known it was my own story playing in my head, is whenever I came across Rangiria, she had this energy about her that, you know, in the beginning for me was quite confronting, you know, because she was like this real full-on traditionalist, or that's how I viewed her. And she loved kapahaka, she loved Taonga Pūoro, and she was one of those Māoris for me, for my eyes. She was like this real Māori auntie that was brought up te ao Māori, and I'm this young street kid fella that's just come across Taonga Pūoro, and hey boy, who are you? Hey boy, what's your knowledge on Taonga Pūoro, boy? You know, how willing are you what are you willing to sacrifice to be on this hiding of Taonga Pūoro, boy? And so whenever I met with her, I'd always say, I'm going to be meeting Rangiria, so make sure I know the kōrero behinere katiri. I've got to know at least 2 or 3 different more tea and how to play them with the whakatangi, because if she sings one of them, she's going to say, oh, is that all you know, hey boy? What's another one? You know, and so I was building up the story, but over the years, you know, she taught me a lot about making sure no matter what presentation, concert, wānanga, anything that you're doing and representing Taonga Pūoro for, make sure you've got your backup with you every single time. And so what I would do, thanks to her, is no matter what I would do, whether it was a wānanga, presentation, kōrero, concert, or just a wānanga in public with different whānau, is I would always look and picture my nani and koro sitting right next to the front row, or sitting in amongst the circle that we were in doing a video interview, marae interview, radio interview, or whatever. I'd always picture my nani and them there right next to me, and making sure that if they were listening, I would know that I would have to speak tika, because they'll bite my ears if I spoke teka, you know, and we all have our own truths, and you can never judge a book by its cover. I know a lot of people over the years with me playing Taonga Pūoro. I didn't know a lot of people when I first started playing. All I knew was Papa Hirini and Papa Richard, but because they did this competition called the Unison Concerto, which I won the first one. You know, I won the first one. It was cool because all I was thinking about is, after the competition, the very next day, you got to have a wānanga with Hirini and Richard, and because that's where I met them, I was just like
I'm gonna win.
I was like Charlie meeting Willy Wonka. You know, I was like, oh, I get to meet Hirini. Oh. And then I went to their table the next day. I was going, oh, that's on page 3 of Toi Api Api. Oh, that's the one on track number 2 in Te Kutu Whē. Oh, that's, you know. And Hirini and Richard were looking at me going, is this boy okay? But it gave me a second life, you know. And being a father, being able to deliver my babies, you know, people always ask me, what's the best experience you've had? And, you know, and people talking about concerts and stuff like that. But for me, you know, seeing my babies born and my hands, the first hands to hold after bursting the waters, and holding my pepe and wrapping them up and going outside and giving a mihi to the haue whā and hearing the taiao reply.
Ka rehe mea e tū atu.
Ka rehe mea tū atu, and how we can express that gratitude to our ao marama, to our ao hurihuri, to our ao tūroa, to this ever-evolving world we're living in, is just always remember to reflect and you know, to acknowledge, you know, the ones that have been before, and the stories that we hold that give us the inspiration to aspire to be those tupuna, you know, because I know, she said, was it Tina Ngata or one other tuahine from the coast, or they heard them in the interview saying, you know, it was something like, you know, what type of tupuna do you want to be? What legacy are we going to hold? And if you can hold a legacy for the next generation, using the taonga tuku iho that they have left us, and leave that positive footstep where another whiriwhiri or whenu or a takirua, we're part of that pautama design or the niho taniwha or that mango pare in the carvings of our tupuna whare that represent those stories. And one of the biggest things that we're doing at the moment through Haumanu Collective is with Hirani and Haumanu, when they created it in the 80s and 90s, you know, they brought out the voices of our tupuna through our Taonga Pūoro and the stories that are encapsulated in them. And for us being that second generation, the next generation, continuing the voice and the stories of Taonga Pūoro, the beautiful thing about them is, you know, our stories is, you know, reflecting on the stories of the past, but also, you know, sparking the fire for new stories. 100%. So our mokopuna in 4 or 5 generations' time can reflect back to, you know, I reira tētahi whaia no ue pohatu, no whaia Libby great tōna ingoa, oh, I reira tētahi pūrākau, you know. And, you know, if we're able to do that, and them picking up that tumutumu, picking up that pūtātara, to kōkiri the sound, to wiri that sound, whakahaua to tērā reo, for the stories to be encapsulated. Oh, the mahi that we've been entrusted by our tupuna to carry out, you know, can be done. And yeah, throughout my journey, one of the first whakatauki that has been like my tā niko on my korowai that I carry is one from Te Puia Herangi. You know, I didn't know it was her at first, but moving to the Waikato and hearing about all these whakatauki she created and seeing that one come up, I was like, where? That's why I've come back to the Waikato, to give her a big mihi. Was ko te oho ngāke o taku moimoi a, ko tērā te pua waitanga o te whakaaro. You know, because in my journey, there's been so many awakenings that has enabled me to grow. And like anything, you know, we always, just because we're growing, it's never a perfect growth. You know, we fall over, we trip over, sometimes we bang our head so hard that we don't know how to get back on track, you know, and, you know, it's not an easy track. And some people have the stereotype, oh, it gets better as you go. No.
It's a work in progress.
It's like, you know, but as we go, you know, it's in Taonga Pūoro, if you're jumping in Taonga Pūoro to make money, well, e hara tēnei te huarahi mōu. You know, but you end up creating a kete full of richness of pūrākau, of connection with people. And I hate saying network, but it's whakawhanaungatanga, you know, and ever since I started this journey, you know, I couldn't speak te reo Māori. It was, the only words I could say was aroha mai, kia ora. I could say the karakia tēnei au. And, but as soon as I started learning what I was actually saying in my karakia and in my whai kōrero saying, whakarongo ake au ki te tangi o te manu tui, 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 tuia. And then I found out what that meant. I was just like, where? I am that manu, chair.
You are already communicating with the taiao. You know, this is something that you have been doing, I feel like, from the get-go, even before the inception of Taonga Pūoro into your world. With the kōrero that we are sharing in this podcast, you have lots of parts or walls or winds of Te ao Pūoro, and I can say that you specialise in this this part of Te ao Pūoro, this part of Te ao Pūoro, this part of Taonga Pūoro. But for you, for Horomona Horo, where or what do you see, how do you see yourself in Taonga Pūoro? What do you specialise in I te ao Taonga Pūoro?
I love using whakatauki, and as you know, sis, in Haumanu we have a whakatauki, ko te piko o te mahuri, ko ia te tupu o te rākau. He rito tangata, he Māori oro, he Māori reo, he Māori ora. And I suppose where my pukenga lay with Taonga Pūoro is, I'm a student or I'm a peer, tauira, of being a weaver. A weaver of vibration and frequency, not for any specific skill set, but I just love Taonga Pūoro, and I've been a tutu of Taonga Pūoro for 25 years now, and I've done a bit of everything.
Yeah.
People always say, oh, you're a musician. I'm like, oh, taihoa, it's not just about being a musician. And I've loved being a musician with Taonga Pūoro. I've had the honour and the privilege to play Taonga Pūoro with some of New Zealand's best and greatest musicians, singers, songwriters, composers. Even this year, a beautiful surprise was winning an APRA Silver Scroll for best music and film composition for playing Taonga Pūoro for the movie Whina. And, for that, I just asked the whānau if they wanted some Taonga Pūoro in it because she was our nanny from Hokianga. And I'd be honoured if they wanted Pūoro. And then not long after I got the call, I got to give big ups to Ngātai Huata and Paula Jones.
Yes.
They were key people in that, and got to work alongside Dana Lund, who was the film composer for Whina. And these little hua are there for us to see, and for anybody that's out there that's starting their journey with Taonga Pūoro, I'd say just, keep an ear out, keep an eye out, keep your vibrations out for the tohu that are given to you, because you don't always see them. Sometimes you hear them, sometimes you feel them, and they'll guide you in the right direction. They'll get you to meet people along your journey. And, if you want to be the bestest, the greatestest storyteller in the world, you can. If you want to create a piece of music with Taonga Pūoro for the world to listen to and to hear the story of your people, you can. Don't let anybody stop you. And the only one that can stop you is yourself. In my journey, one of my kōtiro actually, I've got 3 beautiful tamariki, and my youngest was trying to get me to watch horror movies with them. And I didn't really watch them, but she's going, so Papa, what are you scared of? What do you fear? And I was going, well, to be honest, miss, what I fear the most is myself, because as much as I've been able to, all the things that I've been able to do that have been positive in my world, I've got the same potential to do the opposite. And it's not that watching a scary movie is going to do anything, but, the actions that I do hopefully will reflect something that's positive rather than negative. And along the journey, you meet people that are envious and that want a bit of what you've got. you know, and one thing I always learnt with Papa Hirani, he was a prolific songwriter, a prolific guitar player, te reo Māori exponent, everything, but the little conversations that I got to have with him, being his peer, being his student, was really just the small conversations we would have. And he'd say, no matter who the person is, when you're learning about Taonga Pūoro, ko te tuatahi, ko ngā pūrākau he pūrākau Māori, he whakapapa Māori, ko ngā waiata Māori, ko te hau ka puta he hau Māori. Aha kua ko te tangata, ka whakatangi hea he Māori, he Pākehā, he Hainamana, he Wiwi, he Aharānei, ko te whatu manoa, me te ngākau mahaki o te mahi, ka hoki kia hine raukatauri, hine pūtehue, hine moana. And a lot of my kaitiaki have been those atua wahine, and my nannies have been sort of like my backbone in my journey. When I needed to meet some nannies in my journey, man, I got to meet two of the best nannies a person could have, and Rose Pere and Hine Wirangi Kohu. And in my journey, whenever I felt that I needed something from a particular world, I'd have my nanny from up north with me all the time, but I'd get a kōrero or something from Whaia Rose and say, Horomona, haramai ki taku whare ki hiwai kare moana, kia tere, and then go to her whare, and the wānanga we'd have at her whare would be something you just wouldn't expect, but being in her presence was just the greatest gift. And being in amongst, hearing kōrero from Hine Wirangi, whether it is about the voices of our tinana, whether it is about the voices of her journey, or whether it is about her, really letting me know where our voices are as people. And he mana tō te wahine, he mana tō te tāne, he mana tō te whānau. And it's how we can uphold that, being a tāne, being a wahine, being a whānau, and all of those things that...
Me ngā hononga I wanganui a koutou, and I think in all of the kōrero that we have shared, that you have shared with me and our listeners and our part of Haumanu, is the ability to tui the mahi, ta hononga whakapapa, ta hononga, not just whakapapa o te ao puoro, but your whakapapa, where you have come from, and to tui all of the experience that you've had, and Taonga Pūoro for ngā uri whakatupu, so that we have better informed uri, tamariki mokopuna, that they are ancestralised, decolonised, re-indigenised, whichever woke kupu is used for these days, but to normalise our taonga tuku iho, tēnei ao Taonga Pūoro, ki te whare o tira ki roto ki a koe. E mihi ana kei te tungane. We've shared aspirations, which was one of our pātai aspirations for future Taonga Pūoro, and how we are strengthening in the iwi to be able to uphold this. But are there any, you do so much in Te ao Pūoro. Taonga Pūoro has taken you across oceans and across various winds of tāwhiri mātea. It's taken you in the taiao and in recording studios. It's Taonga Pūoro has come off the paper and, from the pen into the light and into life, just in your short time here in Taonga Pūoro. Is there anything that you are wanting for our, say, in 5 years' time and 10 years' time, and then for your mokopunas to come?
Well, the beautiful thing about our taonga tuku iho, for me it was Taonga Pūoro. For some of my brothers and sisters along my journey. It has been a tefa, it has been a poi, it has been a taniko weave from muka, it has been standing on the marae holding the tokotoko of their tupuna. What it does show though is when I first started playing Taonga Pūoro, now I was told by my own family, what's that going to do for you, boy? It's not going to get you anywhere. It's taken me, as you said, all around the world. I've been able to play with symphony orchestras, with contemporary bands and festivals and places all around the world, from, the Great Wall of China all the way through to, New York City. And I've performed with full symphony orchestras and, and gatherings that commemorate our soldiers from the Anzacs over in Istanbul, all the way through to, jamming at WOMADs here in Aotearoa. And one of the beautiful things that's been one of my challenges is I always tell people, man, if I can do it, damn, anybody can.
Yeah.
All it takes is...
Look at me now.
Yeah, all it takes is drive, because when I was that 15-year-old that was given these papers that were signed by all my teachers that said I was good for nothing, going to be another name on the list of prison inmates, through to even some of my own family not sort of like believing in me to do anything, reflecting back on our history and our journey as Māori, and also my other areas of whakapapa being from England and Scotland and Portugal and all those other places. We're a fruit salad. The best of all the beautiful fruits of the world, that's us. And we get to share that through music. We get to share that through story, through healing. And biggest thing for me really is whatever you do, using the taonga tuku iho that has been gifted to you, is use them with the best intention. Because when you can do that, the taiao will let you know and will respond. And although the response won't be in monetary, like in the world of being a music, in the world of music, Taonga Pūoro is a niche market. There's certain things that, certain doorways you get into, and other doorways that they are unsure on where to put you. But looking at it from a Māori viewpoint, Taonga Pūoro is our world. It holds the vibrations and frequencies of our story, whether it's from our waha, whether it's from our tinana, whether it's from our hau, whether it's from us becoming one with another entity of our world, whether it's rākau, koiwi, anga, wai, paru, kuta, whatever. And for those seeking to find a journey, it's hard to reflect in one podcast.
Yeah.
But one thing that I do when I do different mahi, I always say, embrace your hautatu. Embrace your hautatu, your raweke and your nanakia, because they will teach you where your boundaries are. Because we tend to cross them often, but there'll be people there that'll help you put yourself on track and allow you to learn. That's where our learning comes from. When you see something you love, you're going to tutu and make sure you know how to do it. Learn those skills. And then that's from learning a song that you love in kapahaka or in contemporary music. If you love the song, you're going to be rapping it, you're going to be singing it, whether it's in the shower, at the moana, or even jumping up at the marae, singing a Macy Rika song to your whānau, saying, yeah, I can sing it.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of having access to the likes of Haumanu Collective and the mahi that we do, going out into the rohe, is that if we are wanting to start, if we're wanting to grow this passion or this taonga tuku iho or te ao Taonga Pūoro, then we have the ability to come into contact with experts like yourself, running wānanga, and practitioners like yourself, running wānanga to be able to give access, which then in turn helps to give yourself the permission to have that access. Yeah, e mihi ana koe, kia koe e horo e te tungane. It's amazing. I always love doing these mahi because it brings out my inner nanakia. No. Oh, sorry, haututu. My inner haututu to want to explore even more of our ao, Taonga Pūoro. Last final question. Anything, any tips? Hei whakakapi.
I suppose if you feel a passion, an inkling, something stirring inside of you, and that's magnetizing your manawa, your ngākau towards Taonga Pūoro. Taonga Pūoro, as what's been already said, is it's not just about the playing. For some it's actually their mahi is in the carving and carving those stories through mangopare, uno nahi designs and koru and koiri and for some, when I first came across Pūoro, seeing Papa Herini and Richard's taonga embellished with kainga being little korowais that were made from the māreikura of the wharepora, all of those tohunga weavers that would weave little kete for their kōauau, for their pūtātara. Each taonga tuku iho of our tūpuna is connected to everything. When you look at our whare, a lot of those things that are encapsulated in our whare, from the kōwhaiwhai, the carvings, the tukutuku panels, the whāriki, are all in Taonga Pūoro. Yes. We are those conduits that bring those visualizations into the audio world and allow our ears to serenade on those vibrations and frequencies. And it's a beautiful world, our Taonga Pūoro world, and as Haumanu Collective are growing, because we are a big whānau, and I just really tell people out there that that are listening, jump on haumanucollective.com, see where the next wānanga is, the next workshop, have a listen to these Ororua podcasts, and, reach out and ask the question, because it only takes one question to take that step forward in building your journey and opening your pathway to Taonga Pūoro and eventually to the area that you want to hone your skill set into, whether it is the playing, the weaving, the carving, the storytelling, or even being an avid listener and adding the sounds of Pūoro to your yoga, to your meditation, to your miri, to the taonga you already possess. And so the world of Taonga Pūoro is open to anybody that is open to hear its story, and it comes from within. And so koera tāku mō tēnei wā, ka tuku mihi, ki era whatukura, ki era māreikura, nā rātou tēnei huarahi I huakina mō tātou I tēnei wā. Ka mihi ake ki era o ngā pau o tēnei mahi. Nā te toko maha, ka kore au e whakahuatia ngā ingoa katoa, engari mōhio pai tātou I era o ngā tūpuna, kua wheturangitia, ki era o ngā kaumātua kuia e ora tonu ana I tēnei wā, e pupuri, e mau nei ki era o ngā, me kira era o ngā ponga, e tauana ki runga I te whenua, e pupuri nei tēnei kaupapa o Haumanu, tēnei kaupapa o ngā Taonga Pūoro. Mā koutou e whakarongo ana, nau mai, hara mai ki te ao Pūoro, kei konei tētahi whānau, ka maui a koe mo ake tonu atu I ngā piki, me ngā heke, me tērā reo, ka mō tēte atu, ka tangitangi atu, ka kōkiri atu, ka pāo atu, kia rongoā I te ao. Nō reira hei whakakapi I tēnei o ngā reo, nei rā tētahi paku waiata, ka tākoha atu ki o koutou taringa.
Tēnā koe, te tūngane. While he's getting ready, I just want to take the time to mihi to you, Horo, for mō I whakahuainga I ngō tino karearoto te orokohanga o te ao Taonga Pūoro ki roto ki a koe. And I just want to do a big mihi to your tinana, to your ears for hearing our taiao, to the taiao for communicating and having that hononga with you to show you that to be in this space, to be in this light and to stay here because anei tō ara. Anei tō ara I tēnei ao o te ao Taonga Pūoro. And I just want to do a big mihi to our atua. Thank you atua for communicating with our horo and for e kaha whakautu I ngā pātai I tō wā I te tai ao. Kia rongo tonu tātou, te ao Māori, te iwi Māori, te ao katoa, I tō tangi, I tō reo. E mihi ana no mātou ro te maringa nui, no mātou te ao Māori te maringa nui, mei kore ake, ko tata atua, me ki kua kore, ko I tēnei rangi, so e mihi ana.
Te takapa wharanui o te kua ngātahito no te mātau o ngā rehe hoki mai rai roto I a haue.
Ko te piko te mahuri ko ia te tipu a te